Howdy everyone, and while I'm borrowing from Canon one of their RF 35mm f1.8 lenses, I thought I'd better test how it works on their new APS-C EOS R7 camera with its very demanding 32.5 megapixel APS-C sensor. Mainly because I knew I'd get complaints if I didn't, but also I was genuinely curious because an image stabilized 35mm f1.8 lens will be super useful on an APS-C camera, offering a nice standard field of view, neither wide angle nor telephoto, and will offer some nicely out of focus backgrounds in your images too. If the lens is sharp enough, it could be a fantastic choice on an R7 or R10 camera. If you want to see a full review of the lens that looks at more than just its sharpness on an APS-C camera, then there's a link in the description below for you. So let's see how it performs on that rather brutal 32.5 megapixel sensor. At f1.8, sharpness in the middle of the image is just good, but we're seeing somewhat low contrast with a little ghosting on contrasting edges. Over in the corners, things are looking softer, but you can still make out what's going on there pretty well. I was expecting slightly worse than this, to be honest. Stop down to f2.8 for noticeably more sharpness and a lot more contrast in the corners, and back in the middle, picture quality is now excellent with plenty of sharpness to be seen. f4 looks about the same in the middle and also about the same in the corners. Stop down to f5.6 for just a tiny bit more sharpness in the corners, making the image quality fairly good now across the whole image frame. The lens stays this sharp down to f11, where the effects of diffraction are becoming quite apparent, and f16 or darker will look quite poor. Overall, well, I was hoping for slightly punchier image quality at f1.8, but considering the brutal demands of the R7's high-resolution sensor, I think the lens actually performed okay here. It's sharp enough for most users, especially when it's topped down a bit. And there's one more area of sharpness we'd better take a look at on the R7 camera, and that is close-up sharpness, which is a particularly interesting question on this lens thanks to its impressive macro capability. At f1.8, image quality isn't so hot. We see some softness, low contrast, and a little color fringing. However, stop down to f2.8 for a fantastic improvement in all those areas. Stop down to f4 for excellent sharpness and contrast when shooting close-up. The lens stays this sharp down to f8, where diffraction is already kicking in. f11 and f16 get really soft. So, when shooting close-up, your best bet is to stick between f2.8 and f8. Overall, the Canon RF 35mm f1.8 macro IS STM performed okay on the R7 camera. It's pretty sharp actually, especially when the aperture is topped down a bit. You won't be getting a full 32.5 megapixels of sharpness out of it by any means, but it'll make itself pretty useful, and if you're shooting on a 24 megapixel R10 camera, then you'll be even happier.